Hello, it's Jacqueline Harris. Today I am wanting to be here and talk with you for those who are already in your first trimester, or perhaps there's some of you that are still trying to conceive right now who want to absorb as much information as you can to help prepare yourself for your first trimester. For those of you that I haven't met, let me introduce myself. I'm Jacqueline Harris, and I call myself a fertility and pregnancy strategist. I'm a naturopath, and I'm a hypnobirthing teacher, and I have been working in the field of supporting people with their fertility since 2005. So what I really love to do is actually help support women on their journey into motherhood. So all the way through, from when they're first starting to try and conceive, supporting them through their pregnancy, and then in their postpartum period as well. Of course, in the middle of that is preparing them, helping to prepare them for their birth. I do a lot of work, especially with people that are going through and preparing for fertility treatments to help them be in their optimal health, to optimize their fertility potential, ready for their fertility treatments. But right now in this group, what I'm wanting to be here with is just support those of you that are going through this stage of your entrance into motherhood. So fertility and pregnancy right now, your entrance into motherhood during this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is not, I'm not a COVID-19 expert, and that's not what I'm here to educate you about. There are some really great health professionals around and to educate you about that particular virus. And I'm, in terms of information for families that I'm working with that are trying to conceive or are pregnant, I'm continuing updating myself through Fertility Society of Australia, RANZCOG. These are the regulatory bodies or supportive bodies in Australia for people that are trying to conceive and who are pregnant. So I just want to emphasize that I'm not pretending to be an expert on that. But what I'm wanting to talk to you today about is care for your first trimester. In my experience working with women, say the last 15 years, oh my gosh, that makes me feel old. When I'm supporting people the last 15 years, I feel like they get a lot of support during the fertility phase. And then perhaps there's a lot of support in your pregnancy during the second, especially in the third trimester. But I do feel that a lot of women reach out to me and say, I'm feeling a bit lost during my first trimester, and lost in the fact that, especially if they've been through fertility treatments, there's been a lot of care, a lot of appointments, a lot of monitoring up until they find out they are pregnant. And then perhaps there's only one ultrasound around the 6 or 7 week mark to check what's happening. And then they're kind of left again, maybe not by all clinics, I'm not saying that, but a lot of people talk to me about this experience. And then there's not a lot happening again until maybe around the 12-week mark. And it's a time when I think generally a lot of women can feel quite anxious or worried, because there's not really a lot of feedback, unless they've got first trimester symptoms. There's not really a lot of feedback from their body that everything's going okay with the pregnancy. You know, you can't see your baby bump yet, and you can't feel your baby moving yet. And like I said, unless you've got like nausea or vomiting or, you know, extreme fatigue or really frequent urination or any of those sorts of things that are kicked in, some women aren't feeling anything of being pregnant. And so for some women, that they like that they're breezing through it, and other women find that they feel worried that they're not actually experiencing anything. Now put that together with what we're experiencing, where there's a lot of fear and worry and anxiety or uncertainty, let's say, with what's actually happening. So put that together with how women often experience the first trimester anyway, and I think there are some really important things that we can go over together to help you feel more supported during that time. So I've got a few notes, bear with me. So what I want to talk around with that were the fear and the anxiety part. If you've watched any videos here with me already, I probably have touched on this, but I'm going to repeat it anyway. When our body goes in a state of fear or anxiety, it doesn't know whether the fear is real, like we actually are having to run from a tiger, or whether it's a perceived fear or anxiety that our mind is thinking over. And right now, a lot of people definitely have worries and fears in their mind because of job uncertainty and money and illness and sickness, or worrying about family members and that kind of stuff. So there is real worries that are happening, but the body perceives that as like a literal threat for your survival. And so your body goes into like a sympathetic dominant state. That's your sympathetic nervous system, where we have that fight, flight, freeze, run. And what happens also through that time is that it diverts blood to the big muscles in your body so that you can run. So your butt, thighs, all those big muscles ready for you to move. But it does mean that it can reduce blood flow, say, to your digestion, and possibly to your repro organs as well. Whereas I want to help you stay in this place where you're in parasympathetic, which is rest, digest, reproduce, where you feel nice and calm. You might still have things that you're thinking over and needing to work through, but you're overall able to think more rationally and calmly around that, rather than feeling really reactive. And so, like I mentioned, because a lot of people have fears and worries and anxieties in the first trimester anyway, I do think that's an important part for us to talk about, because when I talk to you and give you ideas today about ways to help you feel really reassured that your body is doing exactly what it needs to do, and to feel really calm and confident that your body and your baby are working together perfectly, it's not just because I'm trying to say, let's just think positive, or, just be Pollyanna around the situation. It's because doing that can literally change the physiology of what's happening in your body. And so that's really important that we, actually address the physiology, what's really happening there. So, what is happening in your body in those early stages of a pregnancy? Well, very early on, your body gets the message, or your brain gets the message, that there's a hormone release to tell your brain to keep manufacturing progesterone. So your body produces lots of this beautiful hormone called progesterone. That stops your period coming, and it also nurtures and nourishes the lining of the uterus, and it's really important to help sustain the pregnancy. Your body changes really early on. It's just a miracle. It's absolutely fascinating the way the human body works to protect you and your baby. So there's a thick layer of mucus that forms the top of the cervix to help protect your baby. Your immune system makes some changes. Your kidneys make some changes. There's changes in your blood volume. And this is all happening without you even having to think about it or consciously tell your body to do it. The reason I want to emphasize that is because I think it's really important for you to step in and focus on, you are amazing, your body is amazing, and what it's doing to support you and your baby right now is incredibly fascinating and incredibly reassuring. Also, what's happening is there's these beautiful other hormone changes, and that are helping to support you and your baby. So your thyroid function changes. Like I said, your progesterone hormone changes. There's relaxin, which is a messenger which helps start to soften and change tissues in your body. So in that first trimester, there's amazing things that your body does very early on to help your body adapt and to support the pregnancy when it's even such a tiny, dear little baby. And at the same time, you've got this clever little being inside of you. That's the cells are multiplying and forming organs and cells very, very early on. Like its spinal cord forms super early. Its heart. If you've already had if you've had a 6 or 7 week ultrasound, you've probably seen that little heart beating there already. Like, this baby is tiny and it has a functioning beating heart. Like, how amazing is it that your body and your baby are able to do that without you even having to think of it, like I said, consciously do anything around it. Now, the reason I'm educating you around some of those things is because our rational thought can actually really help like our logic thought and understanding of what's happening can help us feel really calm and empowered about what's happening, to nurture ourselves, to support ourselves during this time. So with all of those changes, yes, for some women can come some really intense symptoms. For a lot of women, they won't have many symptoms, though everyone is really different. Some women won't have any symptoms at the 4 to 5 week mark, maybe a little bit of tiredness, maybe they're urinating a little bit more. But around the 6 to 7 week mark, some women do start to notice the nausea and vomiting that can start to come in. And of course, not everyone is going to have that, and you don't have to have that for it to be a viable and healthy pregnancy. Some women will experience those symptoms. So I guess really commonly the biggest things that that I see in clinic would be the nausea and vomiting, and people actually wanting to work on that, the overwhelming fatigue, and then the urination that's keeping them up. Probably really frequently, or maybe frequently through the night. There can be some other symptoms, like or maybe breast changes as well. Actually, maybe during the night they're uncomfortable in bed because their boobs are really tender, or other changes through the day. They're aware of them through the day, just really heavy. So I guess there's some of the really common symptoms that women are experiencing. And in a minute, I'm going to touch on some things that you can do to actually help with that. So there's a bit of education for you. I don't want this, honestly, I could talk about this for hours and hours, but I don't want to go down a rabbit hole too deep and lose you before you've even learned anything practical to take away. So, and I'm probably going to have to come back to this and talk deeper about other specific topics. But today I want you to take away 3 specific things that I think are really important for you to be mindful of right now in your first trimester, and especially so because of the circumstances that we're living in 2020 right now. So, and these are to support you emotionally, mentally, and physically. Okay, one more thing I want to talk about before I go down my rabbit hole of steps. Supporting you emotionally, mentally, and physically to me is of utmost importance during your pregnancy. So a lot of people are supported by, thinking with their midwife and their obstetrician. They're aware of they're having ultrasound, or they're planning for a blood test, or that kind of stuff. But I do think it's really important that we consider, and they'll definitely consider your mental health, but your emotional and mental health is a really important part of even your first trimester. They'll often be very mindful of it through your later pregnancy as well. The reason this is so important is to me is because this is your entrance into motherhood. Now, maybe in the professional, like the groups that I'm in and the Insta pages that I follow, or Facebook groups and that kind of stuff that I'm in, I see people talking about we need to become more aware of the support for women postpartum, and we need to encourage women to slow down and really indulge in that first 40 days of being with their baby and bonding with the baby. But amongst that often comes up the conversation, so we're thinking about the baby, but who's caring for the mother? Where I think that conversation has to come in far earlier than postpartum. Who's thinking about the mother, and who's really caring about the mother, not just the development of a healthy baby, to me begins before you even conceive. But absolutely, if you haven't already started thinking this way, you have to think this way through your first trimester. You have to be supported emotionally and mentally and physically during this first trimester because, like I said, this is the very beginning of your journey into motherhood, and a pivotal time of emotional, mental, and physical change that you need to be nurtured and nourished through. Okay, so when I talk about these 3 things today, I want to cover something for each of those things. So the first thing I want to talk about is your mind. So mentally, as I mentioned, a lot of women can have fears and anxieties in that first trimester. Can't feel the baby yet, can't see the baby yet, and overwhelmingly have love for that little baby already. Even 2 days after you find out you're pregnant, or the possibility that you're pregnant, I know that women start to potentially love their little baby and have dreams and images of what life will be like 9 months down the track with their baby. And so even just this week, I've been working with a couple of mums who are in the very early stages of their pregnancy, and they've been asking me, but how do I get out of that phase of, what can I do to help myself, because I just keep feeling worried, like something's going to go wrong. I always encourage women to really lean into the hope and the excitement and the positive anticipation. I'm not asking you to ignore the feelings of fear or worry that are there. In fact, I ask you to acknowledge those, but then also lean into those moments of great excitement and future projection of what this is going to be like with your baby, and allow yourself to get really excited. This may be the only time you're 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever weeks pregnant with this, or will be with this baby. And so I want you to indulge in each of those weeks, enjoying those weeks for what they are and what they bring. And when I say enjoy, you might not be enjoying all of you physically unwell, but enjoy moments of that. So, and with that, reminding yourself that the fear and the worries generally come from a place of love and hope. That is love and hope that you already have for this little baby, and love and hope for the future, for your future with this little baby in it. So I often think when you come back to that place, that's where your fear and worry comes from, and connecting it back to love, that can sometimes help. But the other thing that I truly believe that helps with our mental perspective is to use affirmations. So affirmations are the repetition of something repeatedly so that our subconscious mind takes it on as real, as a belief. And so you might need to practice these numerous times a day. And I've just written down a couple. And most of the women that I work with, we create their own together if they need them. But I've written down a couple that I want you to think about. And if you've got a pen and paper, then write down these affirmations and say them when you wake up in the morning, when you're brushing your teeth, repeat them in your mind. When put a reminder on your phone and check it once and say them once through the day. Again, mentally repeat them when you brush your teeth at night, and say them again before you go to bed. So 5 times just repeating these few affirmations could really help your subconscious get a very different message, so that you feel confident in what your body's actually and your baby's doing. So I send love to my body and my baby. My hormones are in harmony to support a healthy pregnancy. My body and my baby know exactly what to do. And that third one, my body and my baby know exactly what to do together, is a really beautiful one to give you that perception straight up that you and this baby already are a beautiful little team together. And that's something that I want you to take all the way through your pregnancy with you as well. Trusting in that you and this baby are a beautiful little team working beautifully together, is really powerful in your first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, in your birth, on your birthing day, when you're learning how to breastfeed together. So that's a really beautiful affirmation I think you can use for a long time now in front of you. The second thing that I want to teach you about today is some symptom management. Like I mentioned, a lot of women don't have a huge amount of symptoms 4, 5, 6 weeks, but some women do. Some women do get them, after that sort of point in time. And like I said, big ones are tiredness, nausea, and vomiting, like that. Not just tiredness, but like you've been hit by a bus, fatigue, overwhelming fatigue, and so managing that, really importantly, is making sure that you're doing everything you can to keep your body in optimal health. Some women do have food aversions during that time, so diet can sometimes and often need to be modified. I do think you and that little baby are very resilient together, and even if your diet looks different to what it has done in your compared to preconception care, or it might look different to your normal diet if symptoms start to set in. Trust that your body will still be able to provide your baby with the nutrition that it needs, but where you can, giving your body optimal nutrition to actually help support the developing baby and also you as things change. Making sure you're taking your prenatal, a really good prenatal. If you want to know some good ones here in Australia, by all means reach out, send me a message and let me know. So to help give your body the essential nutrition that it needs. There are some really specific nutrients in higher doses which can help with nausea and vomiting. So there are also some things that you can look out for. Or if you want to work with me or ask me, then let me know. Along with that, we need to make sure that your blood work is in optimal. So things like your iron studies, your vitamin D, your full blood count, and your doctor will most likely do a really thorough antenatal screen as well, first trimester screen. And making sure that all of those sit within optimal reference ranges is really important because it sets you up for the rest of your pregnancy. So one test that I look really thoroughly at in the first trimester with all of my patients is their iron studies. And not just making sure they're just okay, but making sure they're really, really good, because as their blood volume increases as your blood volume increases during pregnancy, I want those iron levels to be ready to help you adapt rather than trying to catch up down the track when you're so fatigued, you've had your iron studies done and you realize that you've bottomed out. So my work is largely preemptively what's actually happening. So making sure your blood work is vital, is great, is also really important to help with symptom management. One of the other or two other key things that I think are really important to help with the symptom management of the first trimester is really good sleep and also really regular eating. Now, right now with what we're experiencing in the world, I do have a lot of people reaching out to me saying they're experiencing some trouble with sleep because their mind is really busy, or they're feeling a little bit more anxious and they're finding it hard to settle. There are some really good nutrients that are pregnancy safe that we can take to support you, to help you have a better sleep, if it's because it's coming from mental activity. But another really important thing is to have a really healthy sleep routine before you go to bed. And ideally, what I say to all of my patients that I work with is, during the first trimester, I'd love to see you have 10 to 12 hours of sleep every 24 hours. And having 10 to 12 hours sleep in a day, so that might be, 8 hours of sleep at night and a 2 hour nap in the middle of the day, however that looks for you. Having 10 to 12 hours of sleep can really drastically help to decrease symptoms like nausea and vomiting. So it's one that I think is really achievable for a lot of people right now, particularly because people do have to spend a lot of time at home. It does mean letting go of the habits like staying up late and working on your computer, or watching Netflix, or those kind of playing on your phone. If you're communicating with friends on video calls and that kind of stuff, plan it for a time that still allows you to get to bed at a really good hour so that you can get that 10 to 12 hours of sleep. And the other thing I think with people being at home is that it is a good opportunity for you to plan and prepare really regular and nourishing meals. Now, I understand that your taste and food preferences can change a lot during pregnancy, and we are restricted with how often, with the accessibility of wanting to go out to the shops and that kind of stuff now. But maybe your partner will do some shopping for you, or maybe you will have to just do smaller, more frequent essential shopping to get the things that you need that are palatable for you right now. So I wouldn't suggest that if this week you feel like you can eat a heap of, I'm going to say, like salty rice crackers, for example, that you go out and buy that enough to last you 4 weeks, because 3 weeks, because you think that's what you're going to be eating, because your taste preferences might change quite quickly. So just being prepared to adapt that. And also, like I said, eating really regularly, because that can help sustain your blood sugar levels better and can help with nausea and vomiting. Now, because people are not accessing their regular exercise routines, that is one thing that we need to address, because of what's happening right now, is that exercise can sometimes help women, manage their early pregnancy symptoms. So if you can't get to the gym that you normally do, or you can't do your regular Pilates class or something like that, please make sure you're at least getting out for that one walk a day. And even if you are feeling really fatigued, I encourage you to get out for 20 to 30 minutes, even if it's a really slow walk, because I do think that's really important to help your body cope with everything else that it's experiencing right now. So that's some support for you physically. And then the third thing that I think is really important for us to speak about in terms of you coping right now is how to support yourself emotionally. And because of social distancing, or people not going to their workplace, maybe they're working from home, it does mean that we need to focus a bit more on our connection to people right now. So before I go into this, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to ask you a question and pause for a minute, because I want to see what comes to your mind. When I speak about connection, I want you to check in with yourself and think to yourself, I'm going to ask you this, think to yourself, what do you need right now to feel more connected to yourself, or to someone else, to other people? So what would help you feel more connected? The reason why I think it's really important to check in with yourselves is because we're all really different around this. So if you don't know too much about introverts and extrovert, it really comes back to the way we build ourselves up, or the way we restore ourselves. It's not necessarily about, who's the center of attention at a party, or who loves to go to social gatherings, because there are many introverts that function really well in social gatherings because it's something that they've learned to do. And there are definitely some extroverts who, because of circumstances, don't go to a lot of social gatherings. So it's not just that, but really it's what restores you. So if you were feeling really tired at the end of a week, this is just one example, one thing you can ask yourself. If you're feeling really tired at the end of the week, what would help you feel better? Would it be going out and connecting with a group of people? Would that make you feel more energized? Or would staying at home with your book, perhaps with just your loved one, fill your cup up more? Now, that's just one little question. When I'm working with people, we often go through a series of questions to help establish whether they're more introverted or extroverted. But getting to know yourself on that spectrum can help when we're thinking about this one in terms now of connection and social distancing. Now, as I mentioned, your emotional and mental health in preparation for motherhood, like during your first trimester, is of critical importance to me. So speaking around this is just as important as it is about symptom management for nausea and vomiting. So I do want you to really think deeply into this and, question yourself. Um, so if you're more of an introvert, it may be that if your partner, say, is still perhaps working in their workplace, or maybe they're even working from home, but you might need to create some structured time together to actually sit down and be in that person's presence, like undivided, sitting next to each other on the couch or reading. Or it might be you want to just sit down together quietly and have dinner and the phone's away or something like that, emails away, so that you're looking for some one-to-one time with someone to help build you up. And if it's not your partner, it might be that you structure in some scheduled time to speak on the phone with that person who's your best friend, that person who helps to fill your cup up. But if you're more of an extrovert, you might actually need to do something really different, which might be if you're in a sport team, say, organising with your sport team of having a training over Zoom where you all do a workout in a space in your house. Or it might be that you get on an online chat group, like a Zoom call or something like that, and you all have a bit of a check-in with each other, or have a cup of tea, or and it's not just about having the cup of tea. I know someone said the cup of tea doesn't cut it, but it's about all being together with those people virtually. You're going to need to find probably lots of different ways to connect with people. So you might have a Zoom call with a group of friends, and then you might know that you need to pick up the phone and talk to your mum or your sister or your cousin or your auntie or something like that. Even if you're working independently from your work colleagues and you don't need a meeting, you might literally schedule a meeting just so everyone can check in for 5 minutes at the start of the day and 5 minutes at the end of the day, because as an extrovert, you need that interaction with lots of people to help build your cup up. An extrovert is also really going to need to make sure they get out of their house and go for that walk, because it just helps them to be in more of an open space. Is probably going to help them as well. So I think when you're trying to figure out how to create connection in your life right now, checking in with whether you're an introvert or an extrovert can really help you determine what you need to do. But I think it is really important that you're consciously creating time to connect, whether that's with a large group of people online, or whether that's one-on-one with your partner in the home. It might be a virtual dinner party, whatever it is. Just check in with yourself. You'll know when you ask yourself, am I more introverted or extroverted, what sort of activities you're going to need during this time of social distancing. But the connection to yourself and to other people is pivotal during your first trimester. Let's be real, a lot of people don't tell anyone during their first trimester, anytime, not even amongst this pandemic, that they're pregnant, right? A lot of people exist in their first trimester on their own, not sharing the news with people, but they've still got that community sense around them. So this experience right now of not being able to physically tell people, some people will grieve that because they would love to be able to drive over to their mum's house and have their sisters and their brothers there and tell them all that they're pregnant at the same time. So it's okay if you need to actually grieve that part. It might just look a little different now if you decide that you're ready to tell people straight away. So I hope those few tips have helped you now. There is a lot more that I could talk about how to care for yourself for the first trimester, but I want to just give you something. So let me recap. The first one is to work on your mind and to try and help overcome some of that fear or anxiety using some of those affirmations that I gave you. The second thing to do would be to really optimize your physical health, so that we can overcome and manage symptoms. And then the third thing would be to, in terms of your emotional support right now, is making sure you really connect in with people. Jump into this group and connect with other women that are also in their first trimester. Share with how you're feeling. Say, I'm looking for someone. Start creating your motherhood, your pregnancy and motherhood tribe now. You don't have to wait till you're in your third trimester or you've just had a baby and you start connecting with the mother's group. Often women make their motherhood friends and their pregnancy friends very early on, like in their first trimester. So if you're ready to do that, start reaching out and looking for your tribe of people to support you right now. I also encourage you to stay highly connected with your midwifery team, with your obstetrics team. So that's whatever model of care that you're choosing, or your GP, however you're choosing to go through your care. Make sure you stay really well connected and flag it with your team if you're not feeling great. And then also, if you're interested, I do work with a lot of women during their whole pregnancy and postpartum. So I have a first trimester care pack where I meet with people 3 times during their first trimester virtually for online appointments. It's in conjunction with what they're doing with their obstetrician and midwife, but it's more supporting them emotionally, mentally, and physically, assessing their blood work from optimal, managing symptoms, what they're experiencing, nutritional support based on what's happening for their baby's development at different stages during their first trimester, mental and emotional reassurance with all that stuff that we've spoken about today as well. So if you are interested in any pregnancy care for your first trimester, please reach out to me. I have opened up new spots in my appointments from this week onwards, because so many people are needing more connection and support right now, because they are feeling a little more isolated from their usual resources. So please reach out to me. I'd love to help support you during your first trimester and beyond as well, of course. So I'm very grateful for you being here with me all the way through that. If you do have any questions, go ahead and pop them in the comments now. Or if you're watching this as a replay, feel free to put any comments in there as well. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you more through your first trimester and supporting you here in this little pop-up group for now. I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to keep it open for, but I'm looking forward to supporting you here in this group right now. And as always, you can reach out to me a message here on Facebook or over on Instagram, or you can send me an email. It's jacqueline@jacquelineharris.com. I'd love to connect with you and hear more about you and where you're at in your pregnancy. So all the best with where you're at right now, but you're not in this alone. I'm here with you. You've got a group of women here that are all interested in the same or at similar stages as you as well. So please don't be alone in this experience right now. I'll talk to you again soon, guys.